After World War II, the United States and later the Soviet Union decided that they want to race who has the most nuclear bombs, and almost everyone did not like that idea. But with the knowledge of how to use uranium, people realized that instead of using it for bad, they can use it for good by making clean electricity. Okay, so this is how nuclear power plants work. We have enriched uranium rods, which decays over time, which makes it heat up. These rods are put into water that heats up by convection from the uranium rods. This also slows down the fission generated by the uranium. The water is heated to above 300 degrees and is turned into steam where it spins a turbine that makes electricity. This is a chemical to mechanical scenario and then mechanical to electrical scenario. The electricity then gets sent off to the grid where it powers your house. The water then goes to a cooling tower to cool down and then goes back to the reactor where the process starts again. Now the water has to always circulate or else the pressure from the hot water could make the power plant explode. In the early 50s, the first nuclear power plants started being built. The first power plant to make electricity was in 1951, and these are the first light bulbs to be lit up from nuclear power. Then, 3 years later, the Soviet Union made the first nuclear power plant that sent electricity to people, and 2 years later, the first power plant that gave electricity to the national grid was built in England. After these breakthroughs, nuclear power plants started being built all over the world, and the world seemed happy to have clean electricity. But nuclear energy is not that pretty on the inside. It's literally a nuclear bomb that is domesticated. And we had to learn how to make nuclear energy safer the hard way. The Three Mile Island incident in the United States back in 1979 was the first nuclear power plant to have a radiation leak and a partial meltdown, which means it was about to explode. This made people very skeptical and some even protested about nuclear energy, and it made nuclear energy more unpopular. In the mid-80s, nuclear power was becoming more and more popular. The amount of nuclear power plants being built kept rising and there was no stopping. But one power plant in 1986 would change this. What happened to this power plant is what happens when you can't be in control of an atomic bomb. The Chernobyl disaster is the biggest nuclear power plant disaster in history. It resulted in more than 100,000 people to be evacuated and two cities to be abandoned. But to add to that, the explosion and the resulting leakage of radiation from the power plant covered the entire European continent in radiation, and it was advised to not go outside the following days. This was the final blow for nuclear energy. This disaster made nuclear energy become very unpopular, and most nuclear power plants under construction stopped being built and some even were decommissioned. These past few disasters were on accident, especially the Chernobyl disaster that was caused from a lack of attention the Soviet Union gave to safety. And these accidents, although destructive, helped us increase the safety for nuclear power by being more careful. But sadly, humans aren't the only mistake that caused power plants to fail. In 2011, the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant got struck by both an earthquake and a tsunami, which resulted in lots of contaminated radiation water to be released into the Pacific Ocean, and the area also had to be evacuated. The reason we try so hard to have nuclear energy, even after all that has happened, is because it has so much potential. Nuclear energy makes very little waste that can be managed very easily by being put underground. Nuclear power plants also create no pollution, and the huge cooling towers you see is just steam coming out, not smoke. Their only downside is being very expensive to build, which is another reason why most countries don't build them. and use renewable energy instead. In my opinion, nuclear energy is probably one of the best sources of energy on the planet. It has come a long way, and we have learned a lot about it and how to make it even better and more efficient. I hope to see more and more countries adopt nuclear power. And you might think, hey, 70% of this video was just about why we shouldn't have nuclear power, but I think otherwise, as I believe that the mistakes we made along the way helped us make nuclear energy safer and more reliable. Now I want to shout out to France for being the most concentrated country in the nuclear energy.